2-1. All right, so we got a lot of great questions from you guys on Mailbag this week, so let's jump right into it. The first one comes from Ramos San Andreas on Facebook. He asks, is it possible for the Cavs to keep Tristan Thompson and Kevin Love? Tristan Thompson is going to get paid, whether it's by the Cavs or another team. He was a beast in the NBA Finals.
We talked about this a little bit on the last episode. And Kevin said, well, they're going to pay the money. We're talking about $75 million in luxury taxes alone. I mean, it's possible. I'm sure they're going to do it. But if I wouldn't be super surprised if the Cavaliers re-signed Kevin Love, or I guess Kevin Love opted into it, and then they did some sort of sign and trade this season. I mean, $75 million in luxury taxes alone is a lot of money.
If they trade Kevin Love to keep Tristan Thompson, the Cavaliers have no business winning an NBA title. They don't deserve it. That's insanely stupid.
I agree, but it's LeBron James is Rich Paul. What do you do?
Well, then LeBron is stupid. That's what it is. If that happens, LeBron is stupid. And I feel like we might get killed for that later if it turns out like the way the Klay Thompson scenario plays.
That's exactly what I was just thinking.
I really hope it's not like that.
I was legit just thinking that.
Should I say Klay Thompson did not really show up in the finals, so...
Klay Thompson
did it matter?
My favorite meme from the finals was the one of Klay Thompson smirking on the bench in Game 6, and the meme was he had it was 5 for 14, he had 8 points or something like that, and he fouled out. And the meme was, when you low-key do nothing on a group project, but you still get an A+.
And it's also like everyone's like, oh, look, it wasn't a mistake. Well, we don't know how that Kevin Love trade, how the Warriors would have been with Kevin Love on the team. We don't know. So you can't say, yes, you made the right decision. Maybe they didn't. Maybe they
won. They can say they made the right decision.
But maybe the Warriors still would have been amazing with Kevin Love.
Maybe.
Hashtag Tim was right.
We're not even going to get into this. The next question comes from Dave Massey on Facebook. He goes, I love Iggy, but how did he win the Finals MVP when he couldn't hit any free throws? I'm sure you guys can shine some light on that one.
Yeah, we talked about this last episode as well. I mean, personally, I think probably LeBron should have got it, and I understand the case that he didn't win. So, can you give it to somebody that didn't win, but he was the most valuable player on the court? Period. Iggy won because he was able to guard LeBron one-on-one, and free up everybody else on the defensive side of things.
He was also arguably the most consistent player for the Warriors.
Right.
He did have a couple of offensive outings. 3, 2, 1. He led the fast break for him on several occasions and really got that Warriors offense going. He was fantastic on defense. When Iggy was guarding LeBron on defense, LeBron was shooting 10% worse. Also, they didn't have to double nearly as much when it was Iggy guarding. And if you looked at how LeBron, every single time he took the ball up when Iggy was on the floor, they were trying to run screens to get switches so that Iggy wasn't guarding him, and there's something to be said for that.
Right.
Iggy was fantastic, and that's why he got it. I think he deserved it just as much as Curry or LeBron.
When the Warriors needed a big bucket, didn't seem like it was Curry that hit it. It was like Iggy that would have some monster jam that would just
or that open 3-point shot.
Slightly agree with the big bucket thing, but I just think it was the defense that swung it for me, and that's with
and how he changed the series when he started.
The series, right? You brought in Iggy. The fact of the matter is they were down 2-1. You brought in Iggy off the bench in Game 4, get to make his first starts all season, and they won 3 straight games and won the championship.
Yep.
So it seemed like Iggy was the catalyst, and I think in that case, if we're talking value, there's your value.
But then again, how do you define value?
Right, and that is the question. And this kind of leads into our next question from Jim Coots on Twitter, @Jim_Coots. How does Steph Curry not get at least one MVP vote, one of the few point guards to lead a team to a championship?
No fucking clue.
Yeah. He at least deserves a few votes.
He was equally as important as Iggy in that series, if not more important, even if he really only had one bad scoring game. But he dictated the tempo, especially towards the end of the series.
And in fourth quarters, he was so clutch.
He was big in the fourth in a lot of games. And I thought the last 2 games when they needed to close out, he really played well.
Well, and the fact that he was constantly drawing double teams gave Draymond Green and Iggy and those other players on the Warriors the room to thrive because somebody was always not being guarded. Like what Steph Curry brought to that Warriors team, even if he wasn't scoring, was fantastic. And he took care of the ball. Like he should have got some votes.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I'm surprised he didn't get at least one. I think we all can agree there. I'm surprised he didn't get at least one. So next question comes from Fluffy Sock Ninja on Twitter, at Fluffy Sock Ninja.
That dude's hilarious. I love your Twitter name, by the way.
So the Cavs are saying LeBron will have a big say in the team direction this offseason, and we kind of hit on this a little bit, but does Black stay? What players come back next season?
Well, we already know that they have given out the qualifying offers to both Dellavedova and Shumpert, and we do know that Sean Marion retired. So Sean Marion's not coming back. They're shopping Brandon Haywood's $10 million contract.
Yeah.
I didn't know he was on a $10 million contract in the first place. I guess I didn't look, or I wasn't paying attention, but I really assumed he was more of a veteran's minimum kind of contract.
Yeah, no, it's definitely surprising there. I think that, it's one of those things too with a guy like Perkins. Like, do they bring Perkins back?
No.
Like, is he really,
No.
a part of this team going forward?
They're going to try and get some players that can score, some players that can.
They need bench depth.
Yeah, some players that can create on their own. They need a whole lot of things. I mean, Mozgov has to come back. Varigel's probably going to have a more reduced role. At that point, do you really need that third big? Probably not if you have Tristan Thompson, because with the way the NBA is going, you want to play small. I mean, they need some guard help. I wouldn't be surprised if they went out and signed another veteran backup point guard, like a Mo Williams type.
I heard they were talking about checking in with Mo Williams.
Oh, well, LeBron.
Oh, man, I'm so smart.
LeBron had that rapport from before. I mean, Mo Williams was on a lot of those Cavs teams towards the end of the decade where, he was an all-star on one of those Cavs teams.
Yeah, they're a little bit handicapped as far as their cap situation is going, so I wouldn't expect the team to change too much because they just don't really have the flexibility to do such a thing.
Right. So the next question comes from Hector Garza on Twitter, @_Hector J. Garza. So the offseason started. What are the big free agent moves y'all expect?
LaMarcus Aldridge.
Well, there's the two biggest free agents this coming summer, or offseason, I guess I should say, is Marc Gasol and LaMarcus Aldridge. As far as Marc Gasol is concerned, all the reports are that Marc Gasol is going to be staying in Memphis.
Yeah, he ain't leaving Memphis.
It's one of those things where it's like if you're talking about a free agent and leaving, why would he leave? And if you're Marc Gasol, unless you're going to go play for the Spurs, I don't really see. Like, Marc Gasol doesn't seem like the type of player who wants to be the star on a team. Like, what's the point of him going to New York?
Well, he likes it there. Like, he likes it in Memphis. They've had a good thing going there for a while. There is potential to make a few moves and improve and get over the top. And I just don't. Yeah, Marc Gasol likes it in Memphis. If you don't want to leave and you're happy there, why leave?
Yeah, there's a lot of walking you can do in Memphis.
Walking in Memphis. LaMarcus Aldridge, on the other hand.
I didn't know that.
LaMarcus Aldridge sold his house, and it looks like he wants to stay with the Texas team. So if you're looking at the two other Texas teams that are available for him to go to, one's the Rockets and the other one's the Mavericks. I think that it's more likely he goes to the Mavericks, and we touched on this a little bit in the last show, but the Mavericks only have 3 players under contract this year, and Devin Harris, Dirk and Chandler. Thank you, Kevin. So they have the financial flexibility to do so, and if they can, bring in LaMarcus Aldridge to start and convince Dirk to come off the bench, and I think that Dirk would probably be willing to do so. That could be a really interesting situation.
Yeah, that was Chandler Parsons too, by the way. Just to not to clear that up, that was Tyson Chandler. But you don't think you haven't mentioned the Spurs at all. It seems like LaMarcus Aldridge, that'd be the perfect fit for the Spurs, and we've talked about that. If you can get Duncan to come back, even if he comes back and take a more reduced role, if you put LaMarcus Aldridge on that team, they're instant championship favorites, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. It depends on the money with the Spurs. The Spurs don't really if Duncan and Ginobili come back, and we aren't sure about Ginobili, but I do know that Duncan he's already started his off-season workout, so it looks like he's coming back. The Spurs just don't really have the financial flexibility to bring in LaMarcus Aldridge, but that doesn't mean they can't find a way to do it. But I think that the financial flexibility is much more in the Mavericks' favor, and we all know that the Mavericks are willing to spend money.
Yeah, the Mavs definitely have money. We're not gonna doubt that here. So the next question comes from Michael Coombs on Facebook. He asks, it's a two-parter. Do you see any potential draft day trades? And what can I do now that the season is over and I hate baseball?
I mean, you're like all of us. I think, Kevin, you were at my house yesterday, or I was at your house, and baseball was on, and we're like, God, the summer's awful.
Yeah, like, I like baseball, but there's just no other options.
No.
Like, and when your baseball team isn't very good, like mine right now, it's just like, and it's not really playoff baseball either. Like, baseball will get extra exciting in August and September and October, not in June.
The WNBA is on during the summer. I just saw the Phoenix Mercury take on Chicago, and it was a really good game. Brittany Griner still isn't playing, unfortunately. She is out because of I think she received a 9-game suspension because of the domestic violence.
Yeah, it was a whole big case. She got arrested and everything. Her and her wife, I think they're married, got arrested.
Yeah. So anyway, the WNBA is on, and like anybody that doesn't watch the WNBA, you should, because it's a really good ball. Like they don't really dunk, and I guess that's why people don't watch it. But women are some of the purest shooters.
They have great fundamentals.
What?
Come on, I had to sneak it in somewhere.
But the WNBA is fantastic. Like, it legitimately, I love watching the WNBA. Also, Summer League's about to start up, so you'll have that. Other than that, you're kind of dicked. What was the first part of the question?
Oh, do you see any potential draft day trades?
And that's funny. We're going to talk about this, but the Knicks, I think, are primed to make a draft day trade.
Yeah, I agree with that as well, and we'll get into some of that in a little.
Or we already got into it, technically.
We can't say that.
Yeah.
3, 2.
And we kind of 3, 2, 1. And we kind of answered the first part of that question already, so no reason to really get into that.
Yeah, just the Knicks we think are the most likely to move the 4. There are some offers on the table. But, yeah, I would say Summer League's your best bet, or, like, catch up on TV, or, like, I don't know, go for a hike if you're an outdoor kind of person. Or
you can do what I'm doing, where I'm going to go and watch some previous year's finals that I hadn't had a chance to watch before, so I'm going to go and purchase those games on the NBA Game Time app.
Yeah, that is definitely a possibility as well. All right, so the next question.
Also, hold on. You can read a basketball book. Right now I'm reading The Basketball Whisperer. Which you read that book.
I did read that book. We can talk about that once we get into the summer. So the next question comes from Keith Nasty on Facebook. He asks us, is the Central Division the NBA's next power division? Cavs coming off a finals appearance. Bulls will have a new offensive system. Pacers get a healthy Paul George back. Bucks get healthy Jabari Parker. And the Pistons are molding into Orlando 2.0. What do you guys think?
I mean, yeah, but it's still the East.
Well, first off, we had somebody on Periscope just say, I got to get into the WNBA because my daughter's starting to play basketball. So best of luck to your daughter.
Yeah, no, for sure, absolutely.
But,
I mean, the WNBA is great. Like, I absolutely love the WNBA. It's so much fun to watch during the summer.
Yeah. Getting back into Keith's question, I do think this can be a really solid division. I think I'm curious to see how, because a lot of it, we mentioned teams like the Pistons who are making moves under Stan Van to get competitive, and I do think they'll be more competitive this year and win some more games. But I still think they're a few steps away from being elite. Milwaukee is going to be, I think, pretty darn good 2 years down the line.
God, they have such a good core.
Right. But in the meantime, it needs to develop a little bit. It needs to round out a little bit more. The Pacers, we've mentioned it before, I think the Pacers are much better this season. I think they definitely get into the playoffs. I think they almost did without Paul George, let alone once they get Paul George healthy for a full season.
And if they can get another shooter on that team, and if they do move Paul George over to the 4, I think with Paul George's injury, the one caveat that you can take from that is how much they got to develop Solomon Hill and how well Solomon Hill came along and ended up. He will be a very good rotational player, which wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for that injury. So the Pacers could be really great next year.
And the Cavs coming, we all think they're going right back to the finals. I mean,
really?
I do, but unless some crazy free agent move happens. But I think the Cavs are right back in it.
I mean, you can't. I would say you can't bet against LeBron, but with those questions about who's going to have a great season next season, is like we don't know some of the moves that are going to be made during the offseason, so it's hard to predict.
Yeah, and with Chicago, we've mentioned as they're currently constructed, they are a little kind of handicapped in terms of what they can do with money. Obviously, we have to see if they bring Jimmy Butler back. We all think they're going to, but it still needs to be officially done.
If Chicago was to add a point guard that could make a three-point shot apart from Kirk Hinrich, I think that would bode with them really well.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see once, Tip's system, we mentioned that it kind of would get bogged down at points. So I think it'll be interesting with the new coach in there for sure. The only thing I worry about with them being the power division, I guess, is just I worry about the timeline. We've mentioned Cleveland's window being kind of short. And so as we wait for some of those more bottom teams like Milwaukee and Detroit to start to round into form, will Cleveland still be in their peak? Will Chicago still be in their peak? That's what hesitates it for me calling it a power division. But I think that they're all going to be really competitive within the next few years. Yes, I do. So the final question comes from Stuart O'Kell on Twitter, excuse me. 3, 2, 1. So the final question comes from Stuart O'Kell on Facebook. He asks, will Kevin cry if the Sixers don't take D'Angelo Russell on draft night? And the answer is, I kind of talked about this a little more earlier in the episode, but the answer is D'Angelo Russell is my number one for the Sixers. I want him to be taken by the Sixers. If he doesn't get taken, though, there are a handful of other options that I mentioned earlier on the show. So, no, I don't think I'll be crying. I think I'll be crying more if Embiid's foot is destroyed.
Still the right call.
Absolutely, but still,
it's a shame, but it's still the right call.
Yeah, no, I don't doubt that. It's just, I wanted nice things to look forward to.
And this is why the Sixers can't have nice things.
But thank you, everyone, for hitting us up on Mailbag. We really appreciate it. We got a lot of great questions from you guys this week. So, again, hit us up on Facebook, hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag Mailbag, and we'll be sure to get to your questions in the next episode.
Yay. I feel like such a 14-year-old in the shirt. I forgot I'm on Periscope, but I got a T-shirt, right? It's one of those T-shirts that it looks like it has an undershirt, but it doesn't really, like it's built in.
Oh, that's built in?
Yeah, so I feel like I'm like in high school again wearing these like built in.
Oh, that's horrible.
Right? It's really bad.
God. Yeah, no, I just thought you were like, I don't have any clean undershirts and just kind of like threw an undershirt on. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, that changes everything.
I don't hate it though. I think it looks good, but it's
no, it's a good shirt. I just like it needs some changes.
Needs some changes. Changing. So I don't know where Justin went. So I don't know what we're gonna do about recording the rest of this right now.
Oh, I went to fix something.
Did he?
I think.
Justin went to go do something.
I can't wait till Justin's officially off the weekend.
He is off the weekend. What do you mean?
But like, does
You
that
just have to
train
train people?
and, like,
You guys have any questions Kevin and I can answer? Because if so, we're on it. So I have a show on the actual radio after this. I'm sure you guys are really interested. But I'm going to be talking to Dr. Raghu Murthy, a cardiologist at St. Vincent's, regarding heart health. And this is all because of the FDA banning trans fats in foods. So it should be really interesting. I'll tell you guys some of my questions I have for Dr. Murthy. What exactly are trans fats? Huh? That's a good one. Is there a certain amount of trans fats that is okay for us to have?
No.
That's not true. It's actually 5 to 6% is okay.
Yeah, but
unhydrogenated oils is
what is that?
right. Exactly.
No. Is that you like shaking the table? Or
Yeah,
is that
after
like...
me. Is that a good alternative? Good types of cholesterol. Can you explain what good cholesterol is? Bad cholesterol. What are some types of bad cholesterol? I'll tell you. It's a little bit of a loaded question. It's trans fats. How does consumption of trans fats lead to a higher risk of developing type 2 diabetes? Coronary artery disease, also called heart disease. How common is it? Are there people of a certain age group or ethnicity that are of a higher risk? What are some of the risk factors for coronary artery disease? How does coronary artery disease develop? Can someone who is thin and in good shape, such as myself, have a high cholesterol? Heart attack, do they differ in signs between men and women? They do. Are younger women at risk for heart disease? One thing I've heard, and it doesn't seem to be true, but that exercise is too risky if you do have heart disease. Aspirin and omega-3 fatty acids are always good. Are there any risks with consuming them or too much of them? Once you have heart disease, that's it. You'll always have it?
Will you?
No, you can treat it.
Oh. Nice.
Some of that's loaded questions for the doctor. But if you guys want to call in, the number to call is 904-340-1045. Again, that's 904-340-1045 if you have a question for the doctor.
Dude, like, give me a break. I hate people who go on Facebook and are like, I miss my girlfriend when I'm going away for 4 days. Like, dude, grow up.
For missing their girlfriend or for putting it on Facebook?
Putting it on Facebook.
Huh.
You can miss somebody, like, that's fine. But, like, dude, you really got to put it on Facebook when you're not going to be together for 4 days?
Dude, this is fucking bullshit.
What's going on?
Megan's doing a live broadcast from Mattress Firm. She just got like fucking cursed out by the guy because apparently we didn't play the breaks when we did. And he doesn't believe us, so I went into the logger, found both of them, and sent it to him. Mm-hmm. And now he's pissed off because he thinks I was being condescending in my email where I just said the 2 breaks are attached.
So it sounds like this dude's just a pussy.
And it's like, I'm sorry I didn't butter up the email for you, dick. Like, do you want me to be like, hello, Joe Thursman, or whatever the hell your name is? I'm proud that you are fucking believing that my coworker's not doing her job.
We're also live on Periscope.
Or whatever.
Right! Hi!
Justin, you come back over. Like, we're done mailbags.
Okay, I'm going over there. I'm going off camera.
Record the intro by yourselves, and then this way...
you gotta be in the intro.
Great.
Why is me being in the intro more important than me being in the actual podcast?
Well, it's not that it's not, but like, you're just gonna pop into the show randomly. Like, we can bang out the intro real quick. We'll just make it a short intro, but like, you can't just have you pop out of thin air either. Doesn't sound right.
This is Mailbag.
Just say that I'm not here for the intro, but I'll be here in a minute. Tim's a little bit running late today.
We started without his A's.
Alright, that's fine, I guess.
I mean, it seems like the actual content's more important to have me here for.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, I don't disagree with that. I just want to make sure we got continuity.
Hold on.
Alright,
That was a 15-minute mailbag. That was nice.
We have a lot more questions than I thought. I was scrolling down Twitter and I just kept finding more and more, and I'm just like, holy shit.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah,
that's cool though.
Sometimes we get 1, sometimes we get fucking like 6. So anyway, we appreciate you guys hitting us up with the mailbag questions.
Sometimes I rhyme slow, sometimes I rhyme fast.
Always have to poop. Just like never goes away. I feel like my whole life is just a series of me having to poop.
Oh, did he email back?
When you die, you poop.
You do? That's one of my biggest fears about dying is them finding me with shit in my pants.
I mean, but does it matter? Like, you're dead
I
at
know,
that point.
but it bothers me.
You're already decomposing. Like...
I get that, but it bothers me that, like, they're going to find me with me having shat my pants.
Well, so if you know you're going to die, I guess take a shit.
Well, I mean...
I feel like that's the last thing I'm going to do. I know I'm going to die.
I'm going to die in 5 minutes. Let me go and take a dump.
I'm fucking with you guys. That's the point. It's sarcasm. It's a smart-ass answer.
Where are we coming out here? Oh, with the hiring?
Yeah. Mike Malone.
Mike Baloney?
Okay, ready?
Yep.
Oh, no, hold on. Go. Nope, don't go. Now go.
You're bringing us out, pal.
Three, 2, 1. So it kind of took us a little while to get to this, but the Denver Nuggets, who used to be Justin's favorite team,
still don't know why.
I just like the Nuggets, man.
Still don't know why. They did make a change to they finally hired a coach, Mike Malone. Mm-hmm. The Denver Nuggets being a team that I don't think anybody that's not in the organization really knows what they're looking for as far as the roster goes next season, whether or not they're going to tear it all down and rebuild. Are they going to trade Ty Lawson? Are they going to trade Kenneth Reed? So it's hard to make a statement based on how good of a coaching decision it was. But, I mean, what are your guys' initial thoughts about the hiring of Mike Malone?
My initial thought... Go ahead. Never mind.
3, 2, 1. My first, well, they're obviously going to be... Mike Malone likes to focus on defense. Which, I mean, for the players that you just talked about, I think that they might be able to fit well into something like that.
What, you think Ty Lawson and Kenneth Reed are good defenders?
Maybe Kenneth Reed, I would think.
No, he's not.
You don't think he's a good defender?
No, he's terrible. Like, he's okay one-on-one, but he loses his players whenever there's he has to guard a pick and roll, or there's cutters and switchers. He's not good at that. He's fine one-on-one, but... You know, it's the same thing with how the Cavs used to be, is that once you start running like pick and roll and things like that, he's not a good help defender, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, and the reason I discounted Ty Lawson is there's already reports that are talking about trying to move him, so
right.
I have a feeling there's a good chance he's not on the Nuggets.
Yeah, I think they flip Lawson for sure. Mike Malone was one of the more baffling decisions last year when the Kings just decided to fire him when they were, I thought, overachieving. That's back when the beginning of the season, DeMarcus Cousins was playing MVP ball. Like it was.
They were in the playoffs until DeMarcus Cousins got meningitis.
Yeah,
Which just a weird thing. Meningitis actually killed one of my dogs. I know I've said that before, but I'll just always take meningitis seriously after that.
Yeah, no, meningitis is a big. You have to get before you go to college. You have to get vaccinated for it. Like it's a specific vaccine that you have to get. But anyway, yeah, I think this. I don't really have. The players seem to be excited about it. I know Isaiah Thomas used to play for Mike Malone, and he on Twitter had, congratulated him and said good hire. And I think he was doing good things in Sacramento, and Sacramento panicked and then went down the toilet. And frankly, if Sacramento fires someone, like I'm inclined to think that it was the wrong decision.
That's a true statement. I don't think it had much to do with them panicking. There were so many reports that had come out that there were internal conflicts between the front office and Mike Malone. I do think with Mike Malone that Brian Shaw liked to run a really slow offense, and George Karl liked to run a really fast offense. Mike Malone, his offense is right there in the middle. So, a lot of the times with things, if you're right in the middle, it's good.
Yeah,
Denver. Awful analysis on my part.
Denver's got a lot of question marks, like we said though, going. So it'll be it'll be interesting.
I just have no idea what they're doing.
And I think once we see the draft, I think that might be able to help. Kind of understand the direction they're trying to take it, maybe.
Yeah. They're going to have a high pick. They have the number 7 pick overall. And speaking of the draft, though, we are finally here. Our draft preview episode. If you can't hear in my voice how excited I am to talk draft preview, well, gosh darn it, I'm excited. So here we go. It's a draft preview. It's coming up this week. So we will next week be sure we're breaking down all of your draft information. And so we're not going to get into a crazy mock draft and do this for every team. Frankly, it would just take way too long to talk about all the prospects. So we're going to mention 10 of the guys that we think are going to be among the top 10 picks, along with a few other guys. And so we're just going to break down the prospects, what we like about their game, where we think they're going to end up, where different scenarios where we think they'd fit well, where they wouldn't fit well. So let's just get right into it. This is the Drive and Dish NBA podcast official draft breakdown. Kevin Rayfuse, Tim Tompkins, Justin Kuzar. Follow us on Twitter at Drive and Dish NBA. So the first prospect that I want to get into is Karl-Anthony Towns, who seemed to be the number 2 guy all year. It seemed to be Jahlil Okafor, who we'll get into in a second, was going to go number 1. But Karl-Anthony Towns has just climbed the draft boards left and right. And I don't want to say it's unanimous because I think there are scenarios where he doesn't go number 1. But I would really, really be surprised if Karl-Anthony Towns doesn't go number 1.
Yeah. Would you say he's I'm sure you'll agree, but he's probably the player in this draft with the best all-around game?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Karl-Anthony Towns has great measurables. I think he projects well on defense. I think he can block shots. I think he can recover well. I don't think he's an excellent perimeter guard per se, but I think inside the paint you'll do everything that he needs to do. I think one of the draws to Karl-Anthony Towns is his range.
He made 127 three-pointers in high school.
Right. We've seen workouts of Towns. Now, I'm not saying he's going to come in and be an instant three-point shooter. That's going to be an adjustment. But the fact that he can knock down the three means he has range outside of the paint to go along with an already strong post game. Mm-hmm. And, there's no injury history here, which we know with centers is one of the bigger concerns. And I really like Karl-Anthony Towns. I think he's the number 1 overall prospect for sure. I think that his per 60 or per 36 numbers, because he was on that platoon system at Kentucky with Calipari.
Yeah, he played only a little more than 20 minutes a game, but in those 20 minutes he had 10 points, almost 7 rebounds, and almost 3 blocks.
Yeah, he's shooting 51% from inside the post. I'm really high on Karl-Anthony Towns. I'm not saying he's a guaranteed superstar, but I'm saying he's a guaranteed really, really good player, and I just don't see any scenario where Minnesota shouldn't take him at number 1.
I know Flip Saunders had actually been pretty enamored with Okafor. Okafor's footwork is it's unbelievable, and that Flip Saunders had actually flown out to go see Towns in person in his workouts, and so it seems like Flip Saunders is looking a little bit more towards Towns at this point. But it's it's one of those things where we had talked about a few weeks ago with Nikolai Pekovic, that if you're the Timberwolves, I guess with the number 1 pick, you pretty much always take the best available at number 1, and you should always do that. But then it brings up interesting, what do the Timberwolves do with Pekovic and Gorgui Deng? And obviously you try and move Peck, but I mean, is it going to be one of those situations where you have to sit on Peck's contract for a number of years because no one will take that contract off your hands? I mean, maybe if the Timberwolves want to unload Peck at this point, they're going to have to give up a draft pick to do so. But even that's probably okay. I mean, they have a really good core with Levine and Wiggins, and Anthony Bennett was a number one pick, but I guess that doesn't matter anymore. And then you add Towns on there, and then you have your core. But if you're the Timberwolves,
it's pretty good core too.
It is
really good.
Good
If I had
core.
Wiggins in town going forward, I'd be ecstatic.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, you just what do the Timberwolves do with that? And I think that if they do,
That's a good problem to have. I
it
think.
is. The Timberwolves, they did this a few years ago with Derek Williams, though, where they drafted somebody at a position they already had filled, and they didn't develop Derek Williams properly. So I just hope for the Wolves' sake and for Towns' sake that if they do draft him, that they do something with Peck and they don't ruin his development like they did with Derek Williams.
If they draft Towns, he needs to be playing game one, suited up, starting center. Get Peck out of here. He's not like Peck. If you are not playing Karl-Anthony Towns, your number one overall pick, because of Nikolai Pekovic, you don't deserve to have the number one pick.
Okay. Do you?
I mean, it's also just not that easy. You make a lot of black and white statements when it comes to the NBA, but decisions like that aren't that.
But
easy.
It needs to be that easy in this case.
Well, a lot of things need to be a certain way in life, but they aren't. That's just not how life works. And there's a human element to basketball. You have a player that you're paying $50 million to. I believe that's his contract. Might be a little bit more. That if you can't move, then you're just paying $50 million for somebody to sit on the bench the entire time.
Park it. You park it on the bench the same way the Warriors had to tell David Lee to park it. You got to do what's best for the team. It doesn't matter. If you're getting paid $50 million, shut up and take your salary.
I mean, that's a great way to look at it, but that's, there's a human element to basketball. It's like when the Cavs brought Mozgov when they played him in those limited minutes, and it's the players get into a certain rhythm and they're more effective in certain situations. And just saying park it on the bench is really easy to say, but that's not necessarily always the something that can work.
But it does. It's so easy in this case. Why are you playing Pekovic in any scenario over Karl-Anthony Towns? There's no justification at all. It needs to be this easy. It is this easy. You play Karl-Anthony Towns, period. I just don't. There's no scenario. There's no human element. He needs to accept that a number one overall pick is coming in. It's a business. It sucks, but it's a business.
You're also talking about somebody else's life, in their livelihood and their contract.
They're making $50 million.
I mean, I agree, but there's a human element to basketball, and I just hope that the Timberwolves can trade him, because I don't think it's as easy as just tell him to do it. And
I hope they trade him too.
That's not how it works.
No.
You can't just tell. There's certain players that will do that, and there's certain players that aren't.
I understand that, and I hope they trade him. But if they are unable to trade him, and they keep him in the starting lineup because of just his contract, that's horrible basketball making.
Well, he's also a really good player. You're talking Pekovic is in a quality center. Pekovic is
But he's not superstar
Towns
potential. Towns projects to be a superstar, and he's your important. You need to get him the rapport with Wiggins and Levine. Pekovic is not a long-term answer for this team.
I mean, I agree with that.
Okay. I don't know what we're yelling about that.
Well, I'm not yelling.
Well, not yelling, but
I wasn't getting upset. It's a lot of those things are easier said than done.
Yeah, I just think that Towns better be playing, I guess is the point that I'm trying to make here if Minnesota takes him. Towns better be playing from day one regardless, unless he's injured. So the next prospect comes from the guy that we thought was going to be the number one overall pick. It seemed like the entire year. He won a national championship at Duke, and that is Jahlil Okafor. He will be a center. Extremely gifted offensive player. Really, his offense is a lot like Tim Duncan's in that he's going to get a lot of shots off the elbow. He's going to get a lot of bank shots off the paint. He's really good at using the paint to get the glass to get baskets.
He averaged 17 points on 66% shooting and about 8.5 rebounds per game.
So just incredibly dynamic offensive center. Would go one in a lot of other years, I think. However, the downside to Okafor, and I think I'm lower on Okafor than a lot of other people out there, but Okafor he's not really good at, I don't think he's a very good player when it comes to switching on pick and rolls, and we know how important defending the pick and roll is in the NBA. I also think he allows his man to get really deep in the post. He doesn't contest shots that way, and he doesn't prevent the ball from getting inside, and then it's so deep in the post that these players are able to operate, and they already have the advantage. I mean, there's times where he just downright looks lazy on defense.
I've heard rumors or people complaining about his free throw percentage, too, is pretty bad.
I mean, that's something you can work on. I know for him that he wasn't asked to play a lot of defense in college because he was asked to keep out of foul trouble. When he was in high school, there were people saying that he had better footwork than some of the top centers in the NBA, and he does have a really good shot.
And he's good at passing out of the post.
Yeah, and there's a lot of quality to that. So, it's kind of one of those Al Jefferson things where, I mean, it's great to have a rim protector, and we all know how important that is. But if you can get a player who can develop some sort of defensive mindset, there's a lot of value to that. So I think that he's pretty much a lock when it comes to the Lakers if he's the one that's still on the board, because the Lakers, we all know that they don't believe in this new version of the NBA with the three-pointing touch as much. And Mitch Kupchak had come out and said that it's a lot easier to fill out your wings than it is to fill out to get a quality big man through free agency.
Agreed.
So I wouldn't be surprised at all if that's who the Lakers took.
Yeah, I think that there are reports going around that the Lakers weren't impressed with Okafor, and I think there's a giant wild card in the mix, which we're going to get into Kristaps Porzingis in a little bit. But I would be very surprised, personally, if Okafor doesn't go 2, unless the Wolves take him 1 and Towns somehow slips to 2. But I think Okafor, regardless of any reports, is a solid choice to go 2. I think even with his flaws, he's too gifted offensively that if you put him in the right scenarios, his offensive talents are just so good that you can play around his defense.
Okay.
So the next guy we want to get into, and I know this is, Stuart hit me up on Twitter about this, and it's going to be a fun mailbag question later on down the road, is D'Angelo Russell, guard out of Ohio State. Looks like he's going to be a point guard, could play the 2, but I think by most projections will be the point guard coming out of Ohio State. Excellent three-point shooter. Just really, really solid three-point shooter. Actually, hang on for a sec. Let me just pull this up.
I actually can make a comment off that if you want me to.
Okay, yeah.
While you're getting that.
Yeah, go ahead.
3, 2, 1. People actually were comparing him a little bit to like James Harden. That he averaged almost 20 points per game, about 6 rebounds, and 5 assists this season. So, I mean, he kind of just does a lot of the offensive stuff for you.
Yeah, he's really good at finishing after contact. The advantage or the disadvantage, I guess, to Russell's game is that he's not a freakish athlete per se, but neither is Steph Curry.
Right.
Or guys like that. So there's ways to work around that. That's not going to stop me. I mean, for a 19-year-old, his offensive game at Ohio State was just so polished in a pace and space offense like it is today. His three-point shot is huge. A lot of teams, the way the league is going, is your point guards do need to score at this point. I think he's an excellent passer. I think he does a great job of getting his teammates involved. I think he's able to get the ball inside the paint. I think he's able to run a great game on the perimeter. I think he can get out into transition, which is big. The fear with D'Angelo Russell, or the downsides, I guess, is he's not a lights-out defender by any means. And in big games this year with Ohio State, D'Angelo Russell kind of vanished.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a part of that I attribute to the fact that Ohio State was just kind of terrible this year. Like, he was dragging a team that wasn't really that great, and they still were able to make a little bit of noise in the NCAA tournament and win a good amount of games this year. I'm high on D'Angelo Russell. He personally, for me, is, if with the Sixers at 3, I would take him number 1. Now with the Embiid whole fiasco, I said on last episode that I think if they go a big man, that shows what it is about Embiid. But I think D'Angelo Russell is going to be a very, very good NBA player. I think he will be able to run an NBA offense. I think his shot will allow him to thrive and make up for his deficiencies.
Now, a lot of the draft boards have Russell going 4th overall to the Knicks, and I have to bounce out of here in a minute, so I want to make sure that we get this in a little bit because we had been asked a mailbag question about this, but I think that if you're looking at the possibility of a draft day trade, that the Knicks are the most likely ones to do it. Especially if Okafor and Towns are off the board, which they probably will be at that point. If they do keep their draft pick, though, D'Angelo Russell fits really well into that triangle offense.
Right.
And if you're the Knicks too, if they don't do a draft day trade to get a veteran that helps them right now, and you look at what they need everything.
Well, that's what I was thinking. My thing is, if you can somehow work out a deal with somebody, somewhere along the lines, and somehow get like a Ty Lawson to come in, so then you fix your point guard problem already. Then you can go with a big man. I
mean, Ty Lawson, to your point, Justin, is a really good possibility with the Knicks. But another rumor that's been floating around that I really want to hit on is, if the Knicks trade that number 4 overall pick to the Suns for Eric Bledsoe and the Suns' 13th pick, I don't necessarily see that happening. But I also know if you're the Suns and you're looking at Eric Bledsoe right now, that
you got to consider.
You do, and a lot of that, honestly, it comes down to, I'm not all that high on Eric Bledsoe. I thought Dragic was a far better player, but Dragic was, he didn't fit into the Suns' timeline. If you're the Suns, Eric Bledsoe's not a fan favorite. And I just don't really ever think that he's going to be. And depending on what the Suns are hoping to do this offseason, and, if they can re-sign Brandon Knight and then they can get D'Angelo Russell through the draft, so they have that point guard they're developing, and then they can go sign a 2-guard, maybe a Wesley Matthews or something.
Didn't they draft a point guard last year, though?
Yeah, and they ended up trading him away. They drafted him because they were trying to work out a trade with Toronto, and it didn't work out. And that's the reason why they drafted that point guard, Tyler Ennis, I think was his name. But I do think if there's a draft day trade, that I wouldn't be surprised if it was with the Knicks and the Suns for D'Angelo Russell, getting Eric Bledsoe in that number 13 overall pick.
Yeah, it'll be. I've definitely heard that around. Phil Jackson actually this morning.
Phil Jackson had some comments recently, huh?
Yeah, well, he went on an interview and he said that he thought D'Angelo Russell would really fit well into the triangle. So part of me thinks that whether it's D'Angelo Russell or whether it's Mudiay, who we'll talk in a second, or whether Porzingis or Hezonja or any of these guys are on the board, when you're the Knicks and you need everything, you got to draft somebody. Don't go out and try to make a quick fix, because there's not one. I mean,
that's debatable because they have Carmelo Anthony, but I do think if you're the Knicks, that it doesn't matter what, you just take the best available player, because there's certain players like Kevin and Justin are going to talk about the Magic coming up, where they have a young core, but they have very specific needs. And I think if you're a team like Orlando, it makes more sense to go out and either get that rim protector or a small forward. If you're the Knicks, though, you can play Carmelo Anthony at 3 or the 4. You have zero talent on that team apart from Carmelo Anthony, and Tim Hardaway Jr. is okay. If you're the Knicks, you have to take the best available player, period. It doesn't matter who it is.
Agreed. 100%. So the next guy we want to get into is Emmanuel Mudiay. Mudiay actually, he's a point guard. He was supposed to play under Larry Brown at SMU, changed his mind last minute, and actually went over to China.
Yeah, they're saying he's the best ball handler in the draft, and they said he kind of plays a lot like John Wall. Yeah, for people who aren't.
Mudiay is very quick. Very, very quick. He just has excellent physical tools. He's a great athlete. Really good at finishing at the rim. Does a phenomenal job of getting to the free throw line. The problem and the fear you have with Mudiay is he's not a great shooter. I mean, I think he was 6 for 41 in high school beyond the three-point arc, if we're going back a little further. The fear with Mudiay is that he's not a player who's ever going to have that shot. Now, he is 19. He's an excellent rebounder for his position, which I also think matters. He's a pretty good defender. But it's just the fear you have with
average
Mudiay.
6 assists in China last year.
Just the fear you have with Mudiay is you don't know if his shot is ever going to be there.
A lot of draft boards have him going number 6 with the Kings. The Kings need an upgrade over Darren Collison. I do think it's really interesting for the Sixers, though, because you guys had talked a little bit about Joel Embiid coming up to this point, but if you're the Sixers, you can take Mudiay, or you can take D'Angelo Russell for that point and get your point guard in, because Who's playing point guard? I should know this off the top of my head.
The Sixers right now?
Cannon,
Cannon.
right?
Yeah, Isaiah Cannon, Tony Roden.
But I mean, a lot of boards also have the Sixers getting Porzingis. So I think the Sixers with that number 3 overall pick, and not to keep bringing it back to them, but I think that they can really change the draft drastically depending on who they take, because it's all going to, all the subsequent drafts or picks are going to come from what the Sixers do, and it's so hard with Sam Hinkie because they keep such a tight-lipped. It's such a tight-lipped organization under him.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's kind of fun. Like, as a Sixers fan, it's fun knowing that you're basically the entire draft is on pins and needles after you. Because I think, again, we said it before, I would really, really be surprised if Towns and Okafor don't go 1 and 2.
If the Sixers take a big, I just think it speaks volumes to their lack of confidence and Embiid going forward. But I think that if they take a point guard, then, as a Sixers fan, you can take some solace in that, right?
Yeah, I agree 100%. If you take a point guard, it means that I think they know more about Embiid's injury than people who aren't following Embiid do, and that they've kept it tight-lipped. Now, we mentioned him before, and I want to get into him now, is Kristaps Porzingis. He's a 7-footer from Latvia. He's been playing in Spain the last few years. He's been the wild card as of late, really kind of coming. He's always been mentioned in this draft for a while, but he really is rising up the boards recently. Now, Porzingis, for those of you who aren't familiar with this game,